All right, shalom, shalom. This is part two. As I was saying before, the military is at a decline far as to standardize, the standards that they hold for the personnel. Like if the person isn't qualified for the positions, or just qualified period, if they can't carry over 200 pounds, like that's like having women in the military. You shouldn't have women in the military. First off, they now for different roles, right? They should be like military nurses, you know what I mean, stuff like that, military cooks or something like that. But when it comes to them in the military period, they shouldn't even be in there, because if a men's natural proclivity to save women will kick in a time of an inopportune time in warfare, where something is popping off and one of the women get hit, now all of the men are going to try to save this woman, and they're completely going against the mission that they're supposed to be doing. So that's going to cause some trouble to pop off. Anyway, let me go back to this. And it says, based on past history, it appears that a civilization that embraces feminist values will cease to exist in just a few centuries. This is why we have never seen a feminist civilization aside from very short spans at the end of the Roman Empire and possibly a few other more ancient civilizations. Reading the history of the Roman Empire brings such glaring similarities with our own civilization, right? Because this is an extension of the Roman Empire, Babylon the Great, A.K.A. America. It is as if human social dynamics are literally stuck in a cycle that repeats every couple thousand years. Sound like that Ecclesiastes, right? Nothing new is under the sun. What happened before is required to happen again. The Lord required it to happen again. All right. There were two matriarchal, extremely advanced civilizations. One at the end of the Roman Empire 2,000 years ago, and one possibly at the end of the Babylonian Empire 4,000 years ago. For those who enjoy history, here is a short recap of social changes in Rome 2 millennia ago. Most historians focus on military and political facts, but I find that the social aspects just as fascinating. This is the part that I was just talking about, because they don't tend to, because the social aspects has everything to do with the military and the political aspects of why Rome fell, and the fact that they chose to leave that out. You should raise an eyebrow to these Edomite historians, these heathen historians, because they're purposely leaving it out for a reason, because it's a mirror to what's happening right now. And then it'd be too obvious, I believe, for people if they actually, went into it. It'd be way too obvious. Anyway, the 5th century BC, Roman civilization is a strong patriarchy, right? Fathers are liable for the actions of their wife and children and have absolute authority over the family, including the power of life and death, right? This is what happened in the beginning of Babylon the Great, A.K.A. America. This is how it was. Men were in the power. They were in and this is what people keep speaking about now in these podcasts and this red pill community that they got going and all that shit, right? They speak about that. They like, in earlier times in America where the man was in control of the household, and they was like, when feminism came, that's when the decline happened. And this is exactly what's happening in Rome, though. 1st century BC, it says Roman civilization blossomed into the most powerful and advanced civilization in the world. And the same thing has happened to Babylon the Great, right? Material wealth is astounding. Citizens do not need to work. It says non-slaves, because they did have slaves. Of course, we know that, because Jake was the slaves in that time, or some of them, it says do not need to work. They have running water, baths, and import spices from thousands of miles away. This is the same thing that Babylon the Great does. The Romans enjoy the art and philosophy, the same thing. They know and appreciate democracy, commerce, science, human rights, animal rights, children's rights, and women become emancipated. You hear this? And women become emancipated. right? Emancipated meaning to divorce from. Let's look this up. Emancipated means to be freed from the control or authority of parents/guardians. Now, let's go back, because in this case, we're not talking about little girls. We talking about, they said children rights, because if that was the case, they would have kept the children rights along with this women. They said children rights, and women became emancipated, meaning feminism. They became empowered, independent, right? No fault divorce is enacted. That's the same thing that's popping off now, and quickly becomes popular by the end of the century, right? So, first to second century AD, the family unit is destroyed, and this sound like it's like man, that's crazy. Like the 1950s, you know, the 1950s. Around that time, really, it was the I believe 40s or 30s. But like in that's why it says the first to second century AD. And you can tell, man, like this same thing is popping off right now. Anyways, as men refuse to marry and the government tries to revive marriage with a bachelor tax to no avail, right? So men refuse to marry. This was happening now. Men are starting to be like, hell no, we don't want to marry, because they're being penalized for marriage, right? So let's go to, I wanted to go to this, and it says Roman marriage crisis, right? It says Rome experienced several marriage crises, notably in the late Republic, early Empire, falling birth rates, and that's what's popping off with Esau Edom right now. Elite avoidance of family for pleasure, right? Elite avoidance of family for pleasure. So the people who are in the elitists of Babylon the Great, A.K.A. America, they're avoiding marriage as well as the public, you know, the regular public. But that's one thing that's been said about America, that nobody is having children anymore. It says politics leading to Augustus Lex Julia laws encouraging marriage and punishing adultery, right? And later with the rise of Christianity, which challenged traditional Roman views, leading to figures like Emperor Claudius II banning Christian marriages, highlighting ongoing cultural clashes over fidelity and family structure. So let's go to, where did I want to go to? Let's go here. It says the problem, a decline in citizen marriages and births. You hear that? Especially among elites, as people prefer fleeting pleasures or political alliances over family burden. Now, look, we just went through this shit with Kamala Harris and DJT, right? I know y'all remember when the Judite woman was sitting up here like, well, because she believed that Jake, the so-called black man, didn't support her and voting in Kamala Harris to become the president. And talking about some and all the women talking about, you need to divorce your husband because they don't have the same views as you when it comes to this. This woman is, man, that shit was crazy. I know y'all remember that shit, but anyway, this same thing was happening then that's happening now, right? So it says, as people prefer fleeting pleasures or political alliances over family burdens, right? Because they started to see the family as a burden, just like as we seeing it right now. And this is the decay. This is the downfall of the Roman Empire. This is a part of the downfall. All right. And as the state response, Augustus, it says the state response was to implemented laws like the Lex Julia de Maritandis to penalize celibacy and childlessness.